there's a thing in Canada called
I'm not
dishes.
surprised that you know that, Gerbil, considering the amount of dishes that were there when we were there.
Oh, it's a lot.
They dance around fucking try to burn Kevin real.
I say I could have been an asshole and said nobody can come to my house and get away from their life for a minute. But
I mean, you
it's-
could have, but I greatly appreciate it considering the amount of trouble I was going through with my brother at the time.
Dude, you know you could just come over anytime you want to, James. That's no big deal.
As
long as you can deal with my
may
farce.
take you up on that offer here in a day or two.
Yeah, sure, dude. Apparently dinner.
But
gas.
Apparently, Jazz will go ahead and warn you that you can hear me pretty much anywhere in your house whenever I snore.
That is a true
Damn.
statement. You can hear dudes at any place. I went out into the sunroom to smoke, and before I turned anything on, he was like almost rattling the window at the door, and I was like, "Damn, all right, okay."
Yeah, I really needed the rest that day.
Dude, I've heard you snoring at Dave and Sharon's house when you were downstairs and I was upstairs.
Yeah, he snores like a gutted wild boar. So
Can't be helped.
I've been recording for a minute, so welcome to the Swear Jar, everyone.
Oh shit! I got dragged into it anyway, didn't I?
Well, I mean, you don't have
Yes,
to be
you
here for the
did.
whole episode. I understand that.
No, stick around.
Yeah,
We're being lazy.
I understand as like an editor and producer, you don't always want to be here for everything. I get it, But I am
Yeah.
trying to make your life easier. I changed my recording screen so that it is a logo of the Swear Jar instead of the Be Right Back or whatever the fuck it was before. So now you can just put this straight up on YouTube. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
You know how many places this podcast is?
I think it's like
yeah.
7.
Yeah, 8 if you count
It's a
YouTube.
few.
Yeah. So I
Our
mean,
podcast-
Actually, because Facebook now. Facebook.
God damn it, Gerbil.
9 places right now.
We're on Facebook. Oh, we're gonna get censored.
Probably.
No, we're gonna get cancel cultured. All right, like
That's what we
Oh,
need.
it's just as bad.
I mean, I already got canceled once, so that's all right. They just let me come back after 4 days.
yeah, fuck YouTube and fuck
Well,
Facebook
well,
and
yeah.
fuck all of it.
Copyright's a thing, yo.
Yeah. I mean, I you know what? I can't say fuck YouTube entirely because I do use YouTube occasionally. I do not even have a Facebook. Mine does not exist anymore.
It'll be meta in a couple weeks.
I don't have it either, and I don't care. One of the dudes I work with came up to me today and asked me if I had, what was it that he asked me? If I had a Snapchat. And I looked at him like he had 3 heads. I was like, you realize that I am a 30-year-old man who does not have Facebook or Instagram or any of it, right? He's like, you really need to, man. And I'm like, you're a child. All right? Like,
you are a wee babe. Do not speak to me.
yeah, it's like, you're 19. Like, go away, bro.
Oh, he's Tristan.
Yeah. He's just like Tristan too, because he's only had one girlfriend ever.
Oh.
He's a good kid though. All right.
Oh, I like Tristan. He's a good kid.
All right. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna slow down from the whackety schmackety crazy talk that we usually do. And this week we're going to talk about the Bell Witch. And I have taken so many pages of notes. All right, like my hand, I have not written this much in a while, and I procrastinated way too much and didn't do all of this shit until like this week. So I have learned my lesson, and the next time we do one of these, I'm going to start it immediately upon deciding what it is. All right.
So let me ask you this: Is it enough that you would consider it almost like a college term paper in essence?
No. It's like 11 pages of notes. But
I mean, that would be a college term paper if you ask me.
How can I write that many notes in college?
what? Is Jesse in the
That's why
background
I said
making
it
fun
was
of me
a term
too?
Paper.
She said she doesn't even write that many pages in college now.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's why I called it a term paper.
oh God. All right. So we're going to go over some stuff about the Bell Witch. Some of it is going to be a little bit like a story, because I will be going over it in time period, quote-unquote, order. But let's start with the fact that it happened in the early 1800s.
Yep.
The approximate dates are from 1817 to 1820. Some holdover into 1821. John Bell dies at the end of 1820, cementing the quote-unquote end of the official haunting.
Yeah.
But the first book wasn't written about it until 75 years after the original haunting, meaning it's all second and third hand accounts. So everything I'm about to say, what I want you to do, all right, if you're wearing glasses, I want you to take your glasses off, and I want you to draw little quotes on each end of the glasses and put them back on, because everything I'm going to say from this point forward has quotes around it, because it may or may not be true. Okay? Like, for the most part, there are some documented things. Like, I will say some factual things.
I mean, there are some journals that they still have from the Bell family, but it's few and far in between.
Yeah, so, like, some of it is quote-unquote factual. But, then again, take it with a grain of salt. Or, take your clothes off and open your mind. Maybe you should be at least like a bowl or two deep, or roll a hog leg before this episode. Take a minute, pause the episode, smoke a bowl. You will enjoy what I'm going to talk about so much more after you smoke a bowl. Or you know what? If that's not your thing, take a shot or two. Just open your mind up a little bit, and you will enjoy this. So yeah, but wait until I finish like the next thing I'm about to talk about. All right. If you've already paused the episode and you came back to, man, I'm sorry. I should have given you more warning. So what we're going to start with is what I consider kind of fucked. All right. So it's like I said.
I think I know what this is.
Yeah, this is early 1800s. Early 1800s in the antebellum South. So the family, John Bell, the father, got married to his wife in 1782 when he was a stout 32-year-old man, and she was a 12-year-old girl. Okay. Now then, Dooms, you are the oldest one in this channel right now. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Could you imagine marrying a 12-year-old? Could you imagine how fucking annoying it would be to have a 12-year-old as a wife? Like,
I mean, to be honest, I couldn't tolerate. I don't think I could tolerate somebody around my age. Almost, honestly, that young? No, I would have little to no patience.
Yeah. Then, okay, to top it off and make it even more just fucked, before she was even 18 years old, she had delivered 4 children. Okay?
One of which died.
Yeah, one of which died, but she still, which meant, like, dude was fucking a 12-year-old. Now then, do I think that's alright? No, by no means.
No.
But in the 1800s, antebellum South, unfortunately, that was the norm.
It was unfortunately common practice.
Yes, along with the fact that they also owned 9 slaves, which comes a little bit into play later on in the story, but it is just an unfortunate part of landowning in the 17 and 1800s. That anything pre the Civil War, that's pretty common.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Now then, little is really talked about or known about them going before they came to Tennessee. But their first farm was in North Carolina and was apparently cursed from the beginning. Okay.
All their livestock and everything died from a mysterious disease.
Yeah, their cows and pigs got a mysterious disease, and the mules died of colic. But apparently, year after year, everybody around him, their crops would come up just fine, but his would fail routinely. Which, you know, that's maybe he's
Yeah.
just a shitty farmer. Who knows? But it's a thing. So they moved from North Carolina to the Red River area of Tennessee, which is now, I believe it's Adams County, is what it's called.
Yes, it's now known as Adams County.
Yeah. They lived there, and before the haunting, John Bell was considered a very highly respected man in the area. I mean,
He was one of the richest men in the area too.
Yeah, had money and land and slaves and went to church and was all that fun shit. But there's one person in town who wasn't really a big fan of John Bell. All right. And that would be the woman who supposedly cursed his family and started the Bell Witch and all that stuff, was a woman by the name of Kate Batts. They called her Old Kate. Dooms, guess how old Kate is? How old do you think a woman named Old Kate is? All right.
I'm going to somewhere in her 20s, maybe.
20s? No, you're being real kind, I guess. She, from what we understand, she was somewhere in her 40s.
Oh, okay.
All right, and you're gonna love this.
Spectrum old.
All right,
I was only going off of just based off of the previous evidence. I was just like, man, this town feels like it might be kind of fucked up a bit.
Yeah, no. Well, no, that was normal. The 12-year-old marrying a 32-year-old. Like, I'm gonna get to more of that later on. Don't worry. But this is one of my favorite quotes from all this. Kate Batts was said to have no greater height than a normal woman, but definitely greater girth. All right, and that was not fat shaming. She was apparently a quite stout woman, mostly because she took over the family farm after her husband's legs were crushed by a falling tree branch.
How big a tree branch does it have to be back then, I wonder?
Dude, who knows?
No, I tend to think it'd be something, well, I mean, you guys have seen how thick my legs are. It'd have to be a pretty good-sized tree branch for me to think that it would, cause serious damage.
Yeah, but that's you. This farmer dude was probably about my size. Like a branch the size of your leg. Plus you got to think, how high was this branch falling from? The more speed it gets.
That's true. I mean,
and it didn't really say tree branch. It just said
his legs were crushed by a tree.
Yeah, by a tree.
It wasn't very vague. It's like, did the fucking tree trunk just decide, "No, fuck you, bro"?
Yeah, it was pretty vague on that. So she took over the family farm. She had 3 kids. The boys were said to be spindly and gawky and didn't take to society. And then their 3rd child, Mary, doesn't show up outside to be mentioned that she exists. All right, that she exists.
She was apparently the normal one of the family, and they're all like, "Oh, her."
From what I can gather, she seemed to be pretty intelligent and probably just got the fuck off the farm as soon as possible.
Probably.
Yeah, she just got the fuck out of there. But
can't blame her.
Yeah.
Black, hi. Sorry, I left.
Oh, you're back again?
Yeah, White Kate called me. Sorry, continue.
Oh, that's weird. But Kate Batts, being that after her husband, was, crushed by a tree, she took over the family farm. Well, as a woman in the 1800s, she became exceedingly outspoken and accused all men of stealing from her, essentially, or trying to not really rob her, but trying to screw her over would be a better way to put it, in dealings.
Yeah.
Slight her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason she had a problem with John Bell was after her husband was hurt, he offered to buy her a parcel of unused land. And apparently, from what I read, it involved a cash loan and a person.
Yeah, I was about to go over that actually. He was originally going to buy a piece of land from her, and after a negotiation, it was deemed that he would give them one person, and a cash loan, but he never put like an interest rate into the bill of sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when the first bill was due and he came up with an extraordinarily high, you know, interest rate, she publicly shamed him and went nutso about this all the way until he was before he passed away. He was excommunicated from his church
Mm-hmm.
for usury and coveting his neighbor's land.
But this wasn't until
Hmm.
years and years later.
Yeah, well, it was right before. It was before he passed away.
Yeah, but I'm talking about it wasn't until like a couple years later, though.
Yeah, it was about 5 years after that that it ended up happening. But honestly, I think part of why they excommunicated him was because at that point the quote unquote witch had already been attacking them for 2 or 3 years and bothering the town and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say part of it was just the church was also fed up, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing a lot of people don't get. The Bell Witch was not exclusive to the Bell family. She was a regional phenomenon. She fucked with everyone.
Not everyone, but she did fuck. She fucked with mostly men.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like anyone who came on the Bell property or just generally annoyed her, she would leave the Bell property. If you were in town, she'd find you in town and smack the shit out of you.
Yeah. So
Damn.
yeah, she was kind of a wild bitch. Honestly, it's the reason why
Yeah.
most men in town, even prior to the start of the Bell Witch stuff, considered her to be a witch. And for a while, the Bell Witch was referred to as Kate Bat's witch.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, I will be calling the witch many things throughout the course of this. A witch, a ghost, a spirit, mostly because a poltergeist, because it fits so many different criteria of those things. It seems more to me, if it is real at all, that it was a poltergeist haunting. Now then, I will not be going over theories because there are many and I don't care. I'm just going to go over
We could do a whole episode about theories.
yeah, I'm just going to go over some facts about what happened, that shit. So don't expect theories at the end of this. But
Mm-mm.
for what essentially started it all was considered a conflict in church. Now then, before I even begin this, I'm going to go ahead and say, do I believe this story? This part of the story, at least? No, not in the slightest. Because it involves a woman in the 1800s yelling at a man in the middle of a church. And I just cannot believe that a woman in that time period would do that. Okay? Like, I understand Kate Batts is considered an outspoken woman, but it seems to me like this is an author's rendition of somebody who believes Kate Batts to be the instigator of the witch and stuff like that, and this story was created as a way to make her out to be the witch, because
Yeah.
let me get into it. So it literally would have been nothing of an argument if it did happen at all, if it wasn't for the fact that it coincides with the beginning of the witch haunting. Okay, so a little bit more about Kate. Kate Batts never missed a day of church or a Sunday service, ever. She was always at every single church Sunday, every single time. But she never showed up until about halfway through the service. Okay? Like, it was said that she had the loudest singing voice and the most vocal amens of the church. Which, okay, she's a big, burly woman. I could believe that she's loud. And so, during one service, obviously Kate's not there yet, a quote-unquote sinner decided, because it was a, crazy sermon, blah, 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 whatever. It was his time to repent. So he went up to kneel at the altar, and a bunch of the people from the church gathered around him to do the, laying of hands and prayers and hallelujahs and amens and whatever the fuck they're going to do. You know how it is.
Some hooting and hollering.
Yeah, hooting and hollering. And Kate Batts enters late, as usual, having no fucking clue what's going on, but seeing everybody in the prayer circle. And by this point, the man is on his, hands and knees. She bursts through the circle, knocks the man over, throws her, obscenely large dress over her shoulder, and plops her 200-pound ass on his chest. Okay? And, according to legend, blah, 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 starts screaming out the sin. Alright? I don't know what the fuck that means, except for that a large woman sat on a man's chest and started going, rah, 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 rah. That's all I can think of. So, I guess that's, like I said, I don't buy this story, but it's kind of funny, if you think about it.
Yeah, I really think this story was just wrote to, like, demonize Kate Bass. That's really
just
what I
demonize
think.
her even further. Apparently, the man yelled, "Lord, save me! Lift Satan off me, or I will, I will sink into eternal torment." All right, which is pretty extreme. I will sink into eternal torment. Obviously,
I mean, only because it'd be a hard image to repress.
Yeah, obviously, Kate Batts, being the woman that she is, outspoken and all, started arguing and yelling and saying that she was quite happy where she was and she wasn't going to get up. And at this point, because, like I said, this is still early on into John's career living in this area, people still really like John Bell. He's apparently a deeply religious man who went up and started, giving her shit. How dare you make a mockery of this man's salvation to the Lord, and blah, 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 this and that and the other thing. And they started arguing, and eventually, he apparently called her a lying witch. And instead of arguing, or like saying, no, I'm not a witch, she started saying stuff, witch am I, I'd be a witch, and then said some weird curse and blah, blah, blah. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going into too much of this story, and cursed John and his family and the farm, and that apparently happened just weeks before the Bell Witch haunting began.
Mm-hmm.
We are a lot further into this episode than I thought we would be at this point. We still have so many pages.
You are setting the scene, so...
Yeah, I spent some time setting the scene. We are, like I said, it's 1800s. At this point, it's around 1817. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, the haunting really only affected 2 people. Like, yes,
Yeah.
like Mark said earlier, it did have quote-unquote effects on the rest of the area, but most of those effects were annoying comparatively to what it did to John and Betsy Bell.
Yeah, it took most of its aggression out on John and Betsy, and it would do it to a few other people, but really, she would mainly just appear and start talking mad shit.
Yeah, like, we'll get to that here in a minute. But supposedly, in September of 1817, John was tending to his cornfield when he saw what he couldn't really explain except for a huge black beast sitting at the end of the crop field. After a while of staring at it, he figured it looked like it had the body of a dog, but the head of a rabbit. And the only thing he could truly identify was bright green glowing eyes. So, like a fucking southern man in the 1800s, he pulled out his flintlock pistol and he shot at the dog thing. But when the smoke cleared, there was nothing at the end of the field. He couldn't see anything. There was just essentially nothing there.
Yeah, and he went the fuck home really panicked because he was like, what the fuck was that thing?
Yep. Then, a few weeks later, him and his son saw a giant bird fly overhead. Flew by before they could actually get a shot, but they described it as like almost like a pterodactyl, essentially, like that size, but more like a raven of that size. Then a few weeks later, Betsy and her two of her brothers were walking home, and they suddenly, like, the way it was described was felt their energy being drained as they were walking. And for some reason, instead of turning and going the other way, they kept walking in the direction they were going. And they finally kept going until they saw something green hanging in a tree. And they went up to it, like fucking children do, because children are stupid sometimes. I'd be getting the fuck out of there. But what they saw was what appeared to be a brown-haired woman hanging in a tree with a green dress. And she was obviously dead by the fact that she's hanging from a tree by a noose. But what was really weird was that it looked like she was essentially actively crying. So they turned and fucking ran, but when they looked over their shoulder, they didn't see the woman hanging in the tree anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Then they talked to one of their slaves later on, and she's like, "You need to be careful of that. That's the green's the color of the devil."
oh well, no, the devil's hag.
Devil's hag. Sorry.
Yeah, honestly, up until the late 19th, early 20th century, green was the color of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
The
Then
devil
everyone
didn't
changed
become
it to
red until I think it was like the late 1800s. Or no, it was like the early, yeah, late 18, early
It was the
1900s.
early 1900s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those weird sightings all kicked off the Bell Witch haunting. All right, over the course of the couple from September to like October, those supposedly all happened. Then it went from stuff in or outside the house to, how normal paranormal hauntings begin. Knocks inside the house. Which, when the knocks first started, John Bell thought that it was, which is the dumbest thing ever. All right, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He thought that Kate Batts was sending slaves over to his house to throw stones onto his roof to drive him crazy at night.
Yeah, he thought it was essentially a prank war.
Yeah, he thought that she was having slaves play pranks on him. All right, and I'm sorry, slaves were not having fun. All right, like if they were having fun playing pranks on other people, we wouldn't still be upset about it 200 years later. Okay, like that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But so that's how it started, and then it went from that to the sound of rats chewing on the bedposts, which that sounds like a horrifying sound to wake up to. Apparently, it would be so loud that it would wake the children up from their sleep. And whenever they would light lanterns to try and find the noise, it would just go into another room. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Every time they tried to find it, it would just move.
Yeah, it just kept moving around the house. It was driving them insane. And then they would start hearing the sounds of lips smacking and the sound of someone being choked to death. And every night, these sounds would go on. And every night, as time went on, these sounds would go on for longer and longer. At first, it started out only going on for like, a couple minutes a night until it would go on for 6 hours, 8 hours. Basically from sundown till sunup, they would hear these noises. The sounds of wild storms without a cloud in the sky, wild dogs fighting invisibly throughout the house. Knocks on the roof so loud it was as if rocks were being dropped, ghostly chains pulled across the floors, and oddly enough, ducks could be heard angrily quacking and flapping throughout the hallways.
Everything else was scary except the ducks.
Yeah, it was so scary, and then they had to put the ducks into the story. It was like, what are you doing? Like, why did you do
they
that?
had to add something really annoying.
Like,
if it was geese, yeah, because I'm not fucking with no geese. Those things are mean.
Yeah, geese are mean, but like ducks are just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was the point, though. The Bell Witch was just trying to fucking annoy everybody at that point.
Yeah, and this is before it could speak. It does get its ability to speak at some point, which I will not be doing act outs. All right, I'm not doing that tonight.
I gotta be honest, that's a pretty impressive amount of pranks though so far.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If that was a bunch of slaves, those slaves are real talented. All right.
Yeah.
I have a hard time thinking that wouldn't be problematic.
Yeah.
You're not going to act it out there, Jeff?
No, I'm not going to act out anything.
After that, it escalated further, though.
Yeah,
then,
Jesse and we both said bummer. So.
Oh yeah, what are you doing
Would you
there,
just get
Gerbil?
back on the mic to smack lips, Gerbil?
I said Jesse and I both said bummer.
Bummer. Yeah. Are you guys listening to me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah, we both are.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely.
She's eating cookies and I'm watching TV, listening to you.
Alrighty then. Well,
Okay.
so that all happened. That rounds out the year of 1817 and continues on into 1818 until one night the spirit finally becomes physical, and from that point forward, it will be more or less regularly physical attacking somebody.
Yeah. The first person it physically attacked, it smacked Betsy Bell 7 times.
No, it starts by pulling her hair and pulling her out of bed. The smacking her was later on.
I always get that confused in my head.
Yeah, there's one spot where, like, there are certain things where, people say it's real because of how detailed it is, because nobody could come up with that. Dude, I could come up with some weird ass shit. All right, I come up with stories all the time. We play D&D, and that shit comes out my fucking brain. Okay, all right. I've read fantasy books. People can come up with specific details. Okay, don't. All right.
Oh yeah.
So starts off with Betsy Bell. It would pull the sheets off her bed and pull her hair, pull her out of bed by her hair. Slap her in the face it said that she was slapped in the face with the force of a fully grown adult man. Okay? And the more she struggled, the more she would be slapped. Which is fucking intense for a 12-year-old girl. All right? Because, just so you understand, all of the physical part of the haunting begins right as Betsy becomes 12 years old and starts being ready to be courted for marriage. Okay? Now then,
and who was hurting her was fucked up.
I will say, if I remember, I don't remember if she was 16 or 18. Like, she was older when she got married. Still not okay, because she got married to like a 34-year-old man. But
she was 18 when she finally got married. She waited.
He was 25 years older than her.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other countries where that would probably be less considered of a problem, but I mean,
not saying it's okay by
here,
anything, but by all accounts, after she got married, she was the happiest she'd ever been the rest of her life.
Yeah, that is what is said. But so of course, John Bell, not wanting to deal with his daughter being attacked and all that shit, went to the church for help and got Reverend James Johnston. Came to the house and all right, just so I can precursor everything that's going to go forward from here. Okay, their house was so far out in the fucking sticks. If you went to their house and it was later on in the evening, you were staying the night there. Like, there was no going back to town. It was fucking dark. Right? It wasn't modern. Didn't have street lights or lamps or anything like that. Horses weren't traveling in the dark with no light. All right, like they're not doing that either.
Free, like electricity and everything. So.
Like scoop.
Exactly.
Yeah, about that level.
So he came to the house, did his thing, read quotes from the Bible, did his hallelujahs and amens, and throwing holy water and whatnot, and he felt that he had cleaned this house, and he went to bed satisfied. Then the ghost, like everyone else, pulled the sheets from his bed, started up the noises for the night, pulled Betsy Bed out of her bed by her hair, and then slapped her 7 times. That's the part you were thinking of, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the Reverend came.
Yeah. And when the witch did start talking, she referred to this Reverend as Old Sugar Mouth.
Yeah, Old Sugar Mouth, which was... Well, that actually comes into play here in a minute, too, yeah. So, the following year, Betsy turned 13, and The man who would court her and eventually marry her that year was a 31-year-old man when she was 13.
Her
And
fucking teacher.
yeah, his name was Richard Powell, and he was her teacher. Okay? This is more evidence of
Yeah.
what I was saying the other night of sometimes you gotta raise a wife. Okay?
And the fucked up thing,
If you properly
he
raise
came
a
over to the
wife.
house. Yeah. He came over to the house to talk about her education, and the fucking mom brought up him marrying her daughter.
Yeah. And then they had a fucking ghost incident while he was there. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right? And so since the ghost had started doing knocks, they figured, let's ask some questions. They started asking the ghost questions, to get a little bit more out of it. And asked it, how many rooms were in the house? How many slaves did they own? How far was it to town? Just stupid shit, like that.
Then you can answer
Then,
with Knox. Yeah.
then Richard Powell, the teacher, apparently started speaking in Latin and Greek, trying to get the spirit to communicate in a more, meaningful way.
I don't buy that. I feel like he tried to speak that, and he was like, "These motherfuckers don't know what I'm saying. They'll think I'm smart."
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. But he was the local teacher, so he might have known Latin. All right.
I'll give him Latin, but Greek, it's
Especially
like, come
because,
on, bro.
a lot of Bibles that back then were probably still printed in Latin. If you're highly
Like,
educated,
yeah.
it's possible.
Which, if he was a teacher, he would have been for that
Yeah.
time. So.
But as time moves forward, the following year, they start hearing whispering throughout the house. All right? Less of the other noises, although they do still happen, and more whispering. But the whispering sounds as though it's the prayers of the father, the reverend who had come through, but in a demonic voice, almost mocking him. Which, that does happen.
Yeah.
But following all of this, and now that it's, whispering, and this has been going on for a year and a half by this point, almost 2 years, the whole town knows about it. This
Yeah, because the
is
reverend made them tell.
well, yeah. This is Marky Mark. This is one of our favorite parts. This is the introduction of Frank Miles, the strongest man in town, also known as Ghost Bro. Okay.
Oh my god, this part.
Yeah.
I fucking loved this part of the story. This guy, like you said, the strongest man in town. And by his logic, if this ghost was smacking Betsy Bell, then he could beat the shit out of the ghost. Because he was like, it can hit you, I can hit it. So he goes there, starts sitting there saying he's going to whoop the ghost's ass, punch it back to perdition, pretty much screaming, come at me, ghost. Well, the Bell Witch smacks Betsy so hard she spins around, and to this guy, that signaled the fight's on. So he runs in that direction, jumps, shatters the fucking chair that's there. The witch keeps fucking with him, moving shit around, and he's running around smashing everything until he runs out of steam. Then the Bell Witch proceeds to smack the shit out of him, beat him up a little bit, and he's like, oh, it's nothing, I'm just going to go to bed. Then the Bell Witch wasn't done with him. She came back to his room that night and proceeded to do her normal shit. She taunted him, smacked him. John Bell found him cowering under the bed, scared shitless. And then later on, he comes back with the flower. Because in his mind, he couldn't hit the ghost because it was moving too fast. So if he throws flour on it, it'll hit the ghost and he can see where it's at and he can beat the shit out of it. But the mother decided after he coated half the house in flour, no, you can just fucking leave, go away.
Yeah.
Stop throwing flour in the house.
Stop throwing flour in my fucking house, you dick.
It's like you've already broke half my furniture, so.
Yeah. So shortly after that, because like I said, things just keep rolling through. Betsy
Sorry,
Bell.
guys, I got a little excited there.
I love Ghost Bro, and then the fucking wizard here in a minute. The wizard I really enjoyed too. So shortly after, she began having what they called possessions. What I would call a seizure. Okay. It was said that she would faint When she would come to, she would have high-pitched gasps until she passed out. Once she came back to again, her eyes would roll back into her head, her pulse would drop, which I don't know how they know her pulse dropped. Okay, this is more of like, I don't believe all of this shit was documented exactly, whatever. And she would roll from side to side, as if
As if
something were
somebody was
trying to
crushing
crush
her.
her.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anybody's
That sounds
seen...
like a seizure.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like a seizure, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think some of this is just undocumented medical problems,
Yeah.
because it's also stated that Betsy Bell was a quote-unquote gifted ventriloquist, meaning that she could be
Yeah.
making up some of this. I won't say all of it. Some of it could just be like some ergot, because that was back in the day. That was would give people bad hallucinations. It could be, some other type of fungus or infection or something like that that is making these people hallucinate. But it's neither here nor there.
It is possible.
Yeah. What's funny is every time one of those fits would happen, the ghost would show up because now, by this point, it can speak. And it would just
Mm-hmm.
be gossiping about the neighbors, about who's a drunk,
Yeah.
and if somebody skipped church, or,
If
oh,
someone fell
yeah,
asleep in church.
yeah, this one fell asleep at church the other day. Then, on to something Mark pointed out, good bit ago into the podcast now.
Sorry.
Now that you're good, the ghost was a racist. Okay?
Yeah.
A virulent racist
The,
ghost.
yeah, the ghost hated the Bell family's slaves with a fury.
Yeah. It is said that it used the worst names of the times to describe the slaves. Which, I don't know why they had to make the ghost racist. Alright? Like, this is a wild enough
Yeah.
story. Did they have to make the ghost racist, too?
I mean, what John Bell did to try to get rid of the ghost with the slaves was a dick move. He
Yeah,
used them as bait, pretty much.
Yeah, he would have them stay in the house, hoping that it would get the Bell Witch to leave him alone.
Yeah. And all it did was berate them and belittle them all night. And they're just like, man, our life already sucks, but this is really worse.
Yep. And around that time is when the ghost stops turning its attention on Betsy and starts turning its homicidal intentions onto John.
Which,
Yeah.
sorry, you forgot to mention earlier, when it first started talking, they asked it what it wanted, and it said it was there to kill John Bell.
Yeah.
And when they were like, why? He goes, John Bell is a bad man and he deserves to die. That's all she would say about it.
Which does go into a theory. Well, we're not getting into theories. But it started off with what was considered an intermittent stiffness of the tongue, along with a sensation he was being punched in the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, is most likely a tooth infection, because back then they didn't really take care of their teeth very well, and if anybody's had a tooth infection, like, my wisdom teeth have gotten infected before I got them taken out.
That's the worst fucking pain you could ever
Dude, it
feel.
feels like somebody's punching you in the mouth.
It feels, if it's bad enough, it feels like you're getting stabbed right in your gum.
Yeah. Alright. And apparently this would start off as short bursts of pain, and as the time went on, it would go until it lasted 16, 18 hours a day. Which, yet again, if you have had a tooth infection and it has gotten bad enough for you to be like, I need to go to it. Well, actually, if you've had one at all and didn't go to a doctor, you're an idiot, but because it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But like the first couple days, if you don't get to a doctor within like a week, your pain level does hit that point. All right. Like during the pandemic, I had my wisdom teeth pulled, which meant it took a minute for me to be able to get into a doctor. So I dealt with my wisdom tooth being infected for probably a good week. So I know that pain. Then it was, so back to the story. Then it was also said that he had a visible fungus growing on the back of his tongue that would cause him to have a swollen throat.
Yep. Yeah, they said his tongue pretty much became like a rock that was just in his mouth, like
Yeah,
stiff, couldn't do anything.
yeah, which I mean must made it really difficult to say anything at all, you know.
Hmm. And
Must
like,
not have
just
been.
stop and think about,
No,
yeah, what?
no, go ahead.
I said, just stop and think about how shitty that would be. Like, yeah, it would suck now, but back then he couldn't just stop working. He had to still go out in the fields and work the farm and everything
Oh yeah,
because, like, he couldn't stop. He just had to keep going.
yeah. You know what he wasn't doing though?
Well,
He wasn't performing any cunnilingus.
no
Yeah. All
wonder
right.
his wife was so pissed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No wonder his wife was pissed all the damn time. I mean that, and probably the constant dip spit that they were cleaning up, which is probably why he had a tooth infection to begin with. You know.
Mhm.
So, as the time went on, this is when the ghost got its new characters, which
Yeah.
I am not going to pronounce one of these right. Okay? And it's the second one. But the first character was known as the boss. His name was Black Dog. And he was a
Mhm.
rough and mean spirited, boss, would yell at the others and tell them what to do. Under
And threatened
that,
to kill them.
yeah, under the Black Dog was psychopathy? No, psychopathy. Yep, I told you I wasn't gonna be able to
Yeah,
pronounce it. All right,
yeah, that one's.
yeah, was a jokester and the town gossip apparently. The next one was named Mathematics. Pretty obvious, logic, reason, blah 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 blah, that stuff. And then there was Jerusalem, who really the most they said about Jerusalem was that it had a little boy's voice and was kind of innocent and claimed to be the only honest one of the group, which is why they always picked on him.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, the spirits are weird, because
Like
even though,
sometimes the spirits will come back drunk.
yeah, that's what I was about to talk about. They would go and get drunk, quote unquote drunk, and get into drunken arguments. And apparently,
Hmm.
normally that only happened if they had alcohol in their house. But if they didn't have any alcohol and they I guess wanted to get drunk, they'd go steal the alcohol from their neighbors, which I don't know how that works either. And come in all like sentimental drunks, which I don't know about you, but sentimental drunk is one of the worst. Like, I love you, Mark, but you're one of the worst kind of drunks. All right.
I am. It depends on what mood I'm in, but half
Yeah.
the time I'm just very annoying. I know.
Yeah. So,
I think you've only seen two for me.
in all the years I've known you, Dooms, I've only known you too drunk to drive once. I've only seen you too drunk to do anything once. That required a shit ton of Jello shots and a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that John is dealing with all of these different noises and spirits, has been going on for years and nothing so far has worked, he says, fuck it, maybe we should just move. And as he makes that announcement to his family that maybe they're going to move, the spirit supposedly came forth, well, made a noise, and told John, you can go wherever you like, I shall follow you to the end of the earth. Which,
Mhm.
yeah. At this point,
And
go ahead.
that's pretty much proven because the Bell Witch wasn't just confined to their farm. She
Yeah.
could go anywhere in that county.
Well, yeah, because it was said once during the time of the Bell Witch stuff, a haunting, that Betsy went over to her friend's house one night to stay the night, and she got attacked over there, and the noises
Mhm.
were still going on the Bell farm, meaning that the
Mhm.
spirit was in two places at once. So it is possible, but at this point, some of the neighbors had abandoned them. Some of it because they were scared. Some of them were just tired of the situation. Some of them were just bored of it, But every night, at least a couple people would come over to spend some time talking to the spirits to try and give John just that slight reprieve from all of the noise and craziness of his house. And to make things even weirder and crazier, the spirits would come out and present a song for each one, which that would be funny. All right, it sounds like God damn it, there it went. The Sound of Music, the kids.
Oh yeah.
It reminds me of that.
Wait.
So,
oh yeah, okay.
Now that people have abandoned him, some of the people, a couple people, went to Kentucky and got the premier necromancer of Kentucky, Dr. Solomon Mize, who was said to be a short, fat little man with a wide brim hat. And Marky Mark, you talk a little bit about him, because it goes from him into the Andrew Jackson appearance, which you're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah. All right, so this necromancer, he comes in, proclaims that he can get rid of the ghost. And the Bell family's like, well, dude, how you going to know if the ghost is here? And he pulls out this little contraption that essentially looks like a little windmill. And he's like, this will blow whenever the ghost gets near me. And he's sitting there pulling out his potions and everything. And the Bell Witch decides to make her appearance. She literally comes right behind him and just goes, boom! Scares the shit out of the guy. And he's like, what? He's like, she's like, I've been standing here for over an hour and your little contraption didn't pick me up. That was the only interaction he had with the actual Bell Witch. After that, Black Dog started fucking with him. And Black Dog had a lot of hatred for this guy. Started talking mad shit about him, about his potions, his concoctions. He's like, I've smelled your potions and your concoctions. You have left out key ingredients. So then they started arguing over who knew biblical lore better. And, well, obviously, this guy got schooled by the Bell Witch. Bell Witch made fun of him, and Black Dog called him an uncooked sausage and told him he was a lump of dog shit. Then the next morning, after this dude wakes up, he calls his horse to go get breakfast. His horse cannot move, and he can't get off the horse. Then Black Dog appears, and he goes, alright, I think you can leave now. Smacks the horse's ass, and he takes off flying. Then the Bell Witch proceeded to gloat about this for at least a good 3 weeks later, because she thought it was fucking hilarious that one of her people got one up on this dude like that. And he was supposed to be the premier necromancer that could banish anything. I'm skipping a lot of parts because that's a really long story, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, and then, after that, like I was saying, who was it? It was future President Andrew Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up on the farm, which, yet again, it's one of those things. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one. Him and two of his cohorts came.
And he only showed up because one of the Bell family's sons had served under him, so he knew the family.
Yeah, so one of the guys is talking all kinds of mad shit about how he's killed all kinds of spirits and this and that he never leaves home without silver-tipped bullets. Which, that's...
that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that
like,
guy
just for reference, everyone, that guy was so fucking annoying that they hated him so much that he's only referred to in the journals as the obnoxious one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, got something caught in my throat there. But supposedly, the Bell Witch grabbed him by his nose, picked him up until he was on his tippy toes, and dragged him around the room. And then, as he went to leave, kicked him in the butt on the way out the door, because he obviously left screaming in terror. And that man never returned to Jackson's side.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But the Bell Witch had a very pleasant conversation with Andrew Jackson. She had nothing but respect for him. They had a
Yeah.
polite conversation,
Yeah,
and
that was about
really
it
that
for.
was it.
Yeah, he
Yeah, I mean,
was.
he's on the way to the house. She stopped his buggy, and they couldn't move. And he goes, "By the Eternal, boys, it must be the Bell Witch." And then her voice appeared, and she goes, "Ha! At least you know. I'll see you tonight, General."
So then, in the spring of 1820, Lucy Bell contracted a disease called pleurisy. All right,
Mm-hmm.
pleurisy is an inflammation of the lungs, causing it to be very difficult to breathe. So you would think that at this point the Bell Witch had turned her sights onto Lucy, which no. Instead, it would sing sweet songs to Lucy Bell and make sure that only her favorite foods were brought to her home. Anybody who brought any foods that she did not like, she would scare them away and then magically make her favorite fruits appear, which
Mm-hmm.
would be nice sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and around this time too, the what was it? Betsy Bell was playing in the Bell Witch cave with a bunch of her friends, and one of the little boys got separated and got caught in a cave in. A lot of shit fell on him. They were like, "Oh no, like where'd he go?" The whole room that Betsy Bell was in lit up, and the Bell Witch said, "I'll get him." The little boy was trapped, and he said it felt like someone grabbed his ankles and dragged him back to the cave's entrance. So the Bell Witch started helping people to an extent, certain people.
It did, but not John Bell. Because
No,
in
he was
October,
very adamant in his hatred of him.
yeah, in October of 1820, it was said that the final blow was hit upon John Bell, who was 71 years old at the time. Damn. He was born in like
Mm-hmm.
1749. Um, After spending a week in bed with the painful swelling and twitching and body aches and all that, he figured he felt good enough on this day to go working in the hog pen. All right, Dooms, you've had
Yeah.
hogs. All right, did you guys have a hog
Hey
pen?
now. Yeah.
All right, you have to go out there and work in the hog pen every now and then, don't you?
I mean, I've had to do it a few times, but it ain't my favorite thing to do. I'll sure as hell tell you that.
All right,
Yeah, it's like
so
if I was John Bell, I would have just pretended to still be sick. Be like, "No, I don't feel good, bro."
all right, so Dooms, during this part of the story, I want you to imagine you're John Bell for a second, okay? You're out in the hog pen.
Oh,
Only imagine like you're in a real hog pen. All right, like a 100-acre farm hog
yeah,
pen.
yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
him and his son are out in the hog pen, and while they're talking, whatever, shooting the shit, all of a sudden he gets knocked down and his boots flung off and thrown to the other side of the hog pen. His son
Ugh.
helps him up, helps him get his boots back on, and ties him with a double knot. Few minutes later, same thing. Gets knocked to the ground, boots thrown across the hog pen. So, yet again, the son helps him up, helps him get his boots on, triple knots his
But by
boots.
that point, I've said the hell with that.
Yeah,
said,
dude, I'm
nope,
with you.
Just ain't my day.
Yeah. Then, a third time. Okay? The third time, while he's laying there, the Bell Witch smacks him in the face. And so,
Mm-hmm.
he pretty defeated at this point.
Yeah.
Sits down.
I mean, I'd be defeated if I had to walk in hog shit barefoot. So
Yeah. Well, starts, just chilling there, and then his face starts twitching, his body starts twitching and contorting, and he cries out that, "Oh no. Are you there?"
I'm here.
yeah.
Okay. My recording program froze.
Oh no.
Mm.
Well, no. There it is. It unfroze itself. It's still counting time.
All right, cool.
Gerbil might have to just edit that part out real quick. All right.
I thought you were talking like John Bell, just like, "Oh no." I was like,
Yeah.
"Damn, that's pretty."
So
That's pretty.
no, but John Bell cries out that the witch has finally come to kill him and that his time has come. But he didn't die there in the hog pen that day, because he died a couple months later. Instead, he was brought back to his house where he crawled into his deathbed, never to leave the bed again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, at least it's a little more dignified than dying in a hog pen.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So, just before he died, this is one of my favorite, most fucked up stories of this episode, too. A doctor came to check on him, to see if he could do anything to help. And he looked throughout the house and found a vial in the kitchen, half filled with this horrible smelling black liquid. He couldn't figure out what it was, but he could smell the same smell on John's breath. So, the doctor, not sure what it was, was like, well, what's the, blah, blah, blah. The witch comes out and says that it had been slowly feeding that to John Bell, and that it had finally given him enough to kill him. Doctor, not really believing the Bell Witch very much, gave some of the fucking shit to the cat, to their family cat. Okay?
Yeah.
Cat ran around the house for a minute, fell over, went into a stupor, and then died. The doctor went, well, nothing else I can do, requested his fucking money, and then left. All right?
Like, yeah, I know I just killed your cat, but fuck you, give me my money.
Yeah, it's like, I just killed your family cat, but, you'll get over it.
It's like, you still...
Then, on December 29th, 1820, John Bell died, ending the quote-unquote official part of the haunting. And to everyone's joy, the witch skipped the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
So then, as time went on, over the next couple weeks, the witch basically said that it would be leaving now because it had done what it set out to do. And
But
the
it
witch
would return.
slowly went away, to which now most people believe the witch is just centered around Bell Witch Cave.
Because it's the only original part left on the Bell property.
Yeah.
Like
So
the
we
house
might
and
talk
everything
about
was
some
gone.
hauntings that have happened at the Bell Witch Cave later, but for now, that is a, we'll say, brief overview of the Bell Witch haunting. And even though it was a brief
Keep in mind,
overview,
we
it
have-
was still like an hour long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, we did simplify a lot of this for, time's sake.
Yeah, because otherwise this would have been at least 2 episodes, and I did not want to do that for this. Also, this took up more of my mental effort than any of our other podcast episodes in the past. So it will probably be after New Year's before we do another one of these. I have
Okay.
spoken with Mark and Dooms before the podcast. For the next thing, we are going to do a Christmas creepypasta. Okay? Which I'm very excited for. But now that we are done with what we were speaking of with the Bell Witch, we have one more interesting thing to cover that is going to be a setup for next week's episode. Well, not next week, the following week. Because next week, I have a special friend in town that is going to join the episode. But I asked Dooms to come up with something. I asked Dooms to come up with a question for basically give me a problem that doesn't exist. All right, and this is going to be for, like I said, in a couple weeks. Mark and I are going to come up with the solution for this, like one of the Jackbox party games, essentially. So, Dooms, what is your
Okay.
problem that doesn't exist?
Okay. So, what if there was, let's say, a newly discovered virus that pretty much wiped out rubber plants for the most part of it? So, like, they would still have the rubber to be able to make, like, internal parts that you would need that sort of thing for. But due to the scarcity of it, you couldn't use it for making tires anymore. So, I need you to come up with an idea to do something for wheels as a substitute since you can't use rubber anymore.
Oh, okay, so basically, you can no longer create the rubber for tires. Yada yada
Right.
yada. What do we use for tires?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
All right.
Now I understand why he said he'll see how Stone Age I am.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I like this. Let me put this into my private thoughts so I don't forget about it. Substitute for tires.
You know, now that I think of that, I think Mythbusters did an
They
episode
did.
about that.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably where he came up with the thought.
Actually, no. I was just sitting outside one day and I was trying to think of something that would be like a little bit of a challenge, but would also seem like something you would see at a Jackbox thing to do.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, that's the end of the episode. I would like to thank everybody for listening. This is, I think this might be our longest episode to date. So thank you all
Probably so.
Yeah, thank you for making it through. Oh, it's late, dude. It's real late our time.
Yeah.
Fuck me. All right. Hail Satan and hail yourself.